Some moments don't just happen. They brand your soul. They etch themselves into memory not with joy, but with pain so sharp, you know you will carry the scar forever. For Lyra, this was one of those moments. She was sitting utterly alone at a wedding feast in the grand, echoing hall of Castle Valoran. Around her, 300 guests laughed and celebrated, while she watched the man who was supposed to be her betrothed marry the woman who was once her closest friend. Every second was an eternity of agony. Every peal of laughter felt like a knife twisting in her gut. Every pitying glance from the glittering, gossiping guests who knew her story made her want to disappear entirely into the ancient stone floor beneath her feet. She had only come because not coming would have been worse. To stay home would have screamed of defeat, of a woman broken and unable to face the truth. So she had fought her stubborn pride, put on her best, simple dark green dress, and sat alone at a table pushed deep into the back corner. She pretended that everything was fine. She pretended her heart wasn't shattering with every passing moment. She pretended she couldn't hear the relentless whispers, the condescending pity, and the cruel, judgmental gossip. At 26 years old, Lyra had never felt so utterly invisible, so completely worthless, and so profoundly alone. Lyra's life had been one of simple, quiet accomplishment. Her father, Thomas, was a master carpenter who had helped build parts of the very castle that now hosted her humiliation. Her mother, Helen, was a master weaver, creating stunning tapestries that earned fortunes from the nobles. They were respected, they were comfortable, and most importantly, they had given Lyra the priceless gift of education. Lyra showed an aptitude for languages early, reading and writing in 3 by the age of 12. Her mentor, Elder Kais, took her as an apprentice, teaching her the most ancient and complex tongues, Old Lycan, Belder, and the deep runes. By 18, she was one of only 3 people in the entire kingdom who could read Old Lycan fluently. By 20, she earned a place in the royal archives, the castle's vast library and manuscript collection. Her days were spent translating ancient texts, copying vital documents, and preserving history. It was solitary, dusty, quiet work, but Lyra loved it. She loved the scent of old parchment, the challenge of deciphering faded ink, the profound connection to forgotten past. She was content, respected for her work. Then, 2 years ago, she met Orion. He was the son of Lord Merchant Alwyn, a man who had earned a fortune in the spice trade and held deep connections across several kingdoms. Orion was handsome, charming, and educated. He came to the archives seeking old trade route records. They talked. He was impressed by her knowledge. He asked her out. 6 months of quiet courtship followed. Then he proposed. Lyra was shocked and grateful. She never imagined herself to be the type of woman men noticed. Quiet, plain, more fond of books than balls. But Orion said he valued her calm nature and her brilliant mind, swearing she would be a perfect wife. They announced their betrothal and set the date. Lyra began planning a future, a quiet home, maybe children, a life with someone who truly saw her worth. Then the bride, Lady Seraphina, entered the picture. Lady Seraphina was the daughter of a minor noble, Lord Cedric, possessing ancient lineage, beauty, and vivacity. Everything Lyra wasn't. Seraphina was chosen as Lyra's maid of honor, her closest friend since childhood. Over 6 months of wedding planning, Orion and Seraphina spent time organizing and coordinating, and somewhere in those close months, their feelings changed. They fell in love. Orion, to his credit, told Lyra himself 6 months ago. He said, "Orion, Lyra, I need to be honest with you. I've developed feelings for Seraphina. Real feelings. I care for you, but what I feel for her is different, stronger, and she has what I need. Connection, status, a path to nobility. You understand, don't you? You're wonderful, but you can't give me what she can. Lyra had understood perfectly. She wasn't enough. Not worthy enough. Not the right class. Not the right beauty. She released him from betrothal, telling everyone it was a mutual decision to save her dignity. But inside, she had shattered. Even Seraphina apologized. Seraphina impression, I never meant for this to happen. I love him. I can't help it. Please forgive me. Lyra had forgiven her, believing you couldn't control who you loved. She had buried herself in her work, telling herself she was fine, even better off. But she knew she probably wouldn't find anyone else. And then the invitation arrived. Marcus and Lady Stella cordially invite you. She should have refused. But that stubborn core of pride in her refused to hide. She would not let them think they had broken her. So she had come alone to watch them celebrate what should have been hers.
Welcome to Moonlit Passions, where love, power, and destiny collide. If you're ready to dive into this incredible story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because I got more heart-pounding stories coming your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's begin.
Part 2. The King's earth-shattering intervention. The great hall was magnificent. 2 stories tall, with ancient stone walls draped in tapestries depicting centuries of battles. Massive hearths blazed at each end. Long tables of carved oak stretched in rows. The high table sat on an elevated platform for the wedding party, and the most important nobles. 300 guests, dressed in silks and velvets and adorned with flashing jewels, filled the space. The air was thick with their laughter and conversation. Servants moved swiftly, bringing forth platters of whole roasted meats, venison, fresh bread, and endless wine in silver goblets. It was a feast worthy of nobility, a celebration of union between merchant wealth and titled blood. And Lyra sat at a table near the very back, alone. She'd been seated with distant, indifferent relatives of the groom, who barely glanced at her before returning to their own conversations, leaving her utterly invisible. She picked at her food, tasting nothing. Her eyes kept straying to Orion and Seraphina at the high table. They looked genuinely, breathtakingly happy. Orion laughed. Seraphina glowed. The worst moment came when Orion's eyes found hers across the hall. It wasn't guilt she saw, but pity, as though she were a wounded thing he'd been forced to discard. Lyra looked away immediately, fixing her gaze on her untouched wine, on anything but them. The whispers started after the third course. Lyra heard them, snatches of conversation drifting from nearby tables. Whispering, is that her? The ex-betrothed? Poor thing, coming alone to this. How embarrassing. She should have stayed home. Foolish pride, I suppose. Look at her. So plain. No wonder he chose Lady Seraphina instead. The words sliced, each one a small, cruel blade. Lyra kept her face perfectly neutral, pretending she was deaf, but her hands began to shake slightly. She clasped them tightly in her lap, focusing on breathing. Just get through this. Show your face. Prove you're fine. Then leave. Never see them again. Toasts were made. Lyra raised her goblet, drank without tasting, wishing desperately to be anywhere else. She was so focused on maintaining her composure that she didn't notice him. She didn't see him stand from the high table, didn't see him descend the platform, didn't see him walking through the hushed hall. Not until a shadow, a monumental shadow, fell over her table. Not until a voice spoke. Kaelen, deep, resonant, unmistakable. Deceit is unclaimed. Lyra looked up and her heart simply stopped. King Kaelen stood beside her table, towering over her, easily 7.5 feet tall. He wore ceremonial armor of black steel and silver, a deep red cloak draped his impossibly broad shoulders. His dark hair was pulled back, his beard trimmed close, and a crown of silver with ancient runes rested on his head. His eyes, golden eyes, burning with ancient intelligence and age, stared down at her, waiting for an answer. Behind him stood his 5 massive wolves, grim ash, fawn, storm, and shadow, each the size of a pony, with black fur and golden eyes that matched their masters. They watched her, alert and utterly patient. The entire hall had gone silent. 300 people were staring, stunned. The king had walked through his own feast, past every noble and dignitary, to a back table, to a nobody scribe. Lyra, barely audible whisper, Your Majesty. It's yes empty? The seat is empty. Kaelen, may I? He gestured to the chair beside her. Lyra could only nod, stunned, terrified, and profoundly confused. He sat. The chair seemed to disappear beneath his massive frame. He made everything else seem small. His wolves immediately arranged themselves around the table, creating a formidable barrier between the king and the rest of the hall. They were protecting them. The silence stretched, heavy and profound. 300 people held their breath, waiting to see why the king had abandoned the high table for a commoner. King Kaelen calmly reached for the wine pitcher, poured goblets for both of them, and then raised his own. Kaelen, to surviving tedious social obligations. Lyra blinked, uncertain if she had heard correctly. He was waiting for her to drink. She lifted her goblet, clinked it against his, and drank. Kaelen, you look as though you'd rather face a firing squad than be here. Not a question, an observation. Lyra felt heat rising to her cheeks. Lyra, Your Majesty, forgive me. I didn't mean... Kaelen, interrupting gently, peace. I meant no offense. I recognize the expression. I wear it often enough at these gatherings. Lyra, but you're the king. Surely you enjoy such celebrations? Kaelen, smiling slightly. Sadly, I've attended 3,000 weddings in my lifetime. The novelty wore thin around wedding number 50. Lyra couldn't help it. She let out a small, nervous, but real laugh. Kaelen, better. You should laugh more. It suits you better than misery. Lyra, how did you know I was... Kaelen, that's your former betrothed at the high table. Lyra, yes. Kaelen, the way he keeps glancing this way with guilt in his eyes. The way you've not looked at him once. The whispers I've been hearing all evening about the scorned woman who came anyway. It wasn't difficult to deduce. Lyra desperately wanted to sink into floor. The king knew. Everyone knew. Lyra, I should go. This was a mistake. Kaelen, his large hand touched her arm. Gentle, brief wait. I have a proposition. Lyra, what? An arrangement for this evening? What kind of arrangement? Kaelen, act as though you're here with me as my companion? Lyra, I don't understand. Kaelen, everyone's watching you, pitying you, gossiping. But if you're with me, if you act like you're here as my guest, suddenly the narrative changes. You're not the scorned woman. You are the lady who caught the king's interest. They'll stop pitying and they will start envying. Kaelen, his golden eyes locked onto hers, his voice dropping to a low, powerful growl, you're my mate. Act like it. What do you say? Lyra, why would you do this? You don't know me. Kaelen, considering I know you work in my archives, I know you're one of 3 scholars who can read Old Lycan. I know you translated the Valdorian Accords last year. Beautiful work, by the way. I know you're brilliant, and I know you're suffering through this feast alone, while those who wronged you celebrate. That offends me. I can't undo what happened, but I can give you one evening of dignity. So do you accept? Lyra stared at him. This ancient, terrifying king was offering her rescue, the exact kindness she needed when she was drowning. Lyra, whispering yes. Yes, thank you, your majesty. Kaelen. For night, call me Kaelen. Part 3. The Courtship of the Mind. The effect was immediate. Servants appeared with better food and finer wine, placing them at their table with deference. The musicians subtly shifted their tune to something softer, more intimate, and the whispers exploded. Whispering, did you see that? The king sat with her with the scribe. Why would he? Maybe she's not as plain as we thought. Look at Orion's face. Lyra did not look at Orion. She kept her eyes on Kaelen, who was already talking to her, asking about her work. Kaelen, what are you translating currently? Lyra, a collection of prophecies. Old Lycan, from the early days of the kingdom. Very fragmented, difficult, but fascinating. Kaelen, what do they predict? Lyra, various things. Wars, alliances. One passage mentions a king without heir finding his mate in a house of knowledge. I'm still working out the exact translation. Some of the words have multiple, complex meanings. Kaelen, leaning forward, genuinely interested, tell me more. For the next hour, they talked. They argued interpretations, debated history, and discussed the difference between living history and merely studying it. He, the immortal, had been alive for some of the events she studied. He could add details no text contained. Lyra was utterly fascinated, forgetting the entire hall, focused only on the ancient king who seemed to genuinely enjoy her curiosity and her intelligence. At the high table, Orion couldn't stop staring. Seraphina looked confused. Her father, Lord Cedric, looked calculating, wondering if there was some advantage to be gained from this unthinkable turn of events. After the meal, the musician started playing a dance tune. Kaelen stood, offered his hand. Kaelen, we should dance to make this convincing. Lyra, I'm not trained in court dances. I'll stumble, make you look foolish. Kaelen, I doubt that, but if you do, I'll catch you. Come. She took his hand, let him lead her to the center of the hall. People scrambled aside, creating space. His wolves followed, forming an impenetrable circle around them, protective, possessive. His hand went to her waist, large, warm, and utterly steady. Kaelen, follow my lead. Step when I step. The music began. He moved. She followed and immediately stumbled. He caught her, stabilized her, his grip firm. Kaelen, try again. She focused on his movements, on the pressure of his hand, on the rhythm. Slowly, clumsily at first, she found it. She started moving with him, not gracefully, but together. Kaelen, quietly, just for her better. You're doing well. Lyra, you're being kind. Kaelen, I'm being honest. A rarity for kings. Lyra looked up at him. Really looked. His face was hard, scarred, ancient. But his eyes were kind, tired, and profoundly lonely. Lyra recognized that loneliness. She had worn it for months. Lyra, without thinking you're lonely. She froze, horrified. Lyra, your majesty, forgive me. I shouldn't have. Kaelen, not offended, only sad, yes, I am. 450 years is a long time to be alone, but I thought I hid it better. Lyra, you do, for most people, but I recognize it. I've been lonely, too. Even before Orion, I was always a quiet one, the forgettable one. Kaelen, you're not forgettable. You just met me, and yet I suspect I'll remember this night for the next century. The words hung between them, heavy and meaningful. The dance continued. Lyra forgot about Orion, about Seraphina, about everything except the man holding her. This king who had rescued her from public humiliation, who talked to her like she mattered, who looked at her like she was visible. When the dance ended, they didn't separate immediately. They stood there, close, until someone cleared their throat loudly. They turned. Orion stood nearby, his face tight and uncomfortable. Orion, your majesty, forgive the interruption. Might I have a word with Lady Lyra? Kaelen, his expression went cold. Dangerous, no. Orion, please, it's urgent. We have history. I need to speak with her. Lyra, finding her voice. Strong, I have nothing to say to you, Orion. Orion, Lyra, be reasonable. I just want to make sure you're all right. Lyra, I'm fine. Better than fine. Now, please go back to your bride. Orion looked between them, at Kaelen's protective stance, at the wolves, and at Lyra's determined face. Orion, your majesty, with respect. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's vulnerable right now. I don't want to see her hurt. Kaelen, his voice dropped, becoming deadly quiet. The lady said she has nothing to say to you. I suggest you return to your celebration before you insult me further by persisting. It was not a suggestion. It was an absolute command. Orion went pale, bowed stiffly, and retreated. Kaelen, to Lyra, are you well? Lyra, yes. She was trembling, but from relief and gratitude. Thank you. Kaelen, he's a fool. Lyra, what? Kaelen, leaving you for title and land. A transaction. Not love. He's a fool. Lyra smiled. It was the first real, genuine smile of the entire night. Lyra, maybe he is. Kaelen, would you like some air? It's stifling in here. She nodded, grateful. Part 4. The Proposition of Eternity. They left the hall, walking through the quiet corridors and out into the castle gardens. The night was cold and clear. Stars scattered across the black sky, and the moon was full and bright, casting silver frost across the grass. They found a cold stone bench near a fountain and sat. The 5 wolves spread out, giving them space while guarding the perimeter. Lyra, why did you really do this? She asked. It wasn't just to help me, was it? Kaelen. Staring at the stars, I saw someone suffering, someone who didn't deserve to suffer, and I had the power to ease it. So I did. Lyra, that's kind. Kaelen, don't credit me with too much kindness. He looked at her. I also found the entire situation offensive. That man hurt you, then parades his new bride in your face. It's cruel, unnecessary. I don't tolerate cruelty. Well, and he paused, and I wanted to talk to you. Lyra, you want to talk to a scribe? Kaelen, I've seen you in the archives for months now. Always working, never speaking, always alone. I was curious about the woman who spends her days with ancient texts instead of gossip and politics. The one who chose knowledge over court games. That's rare. Lyra felt something warm bloom in her chest. He noticed me before night? Kaelen, I notice everything in my castle. It's a habit born of necessity. But yes, I noticed you. Lyra, why didn't you ever speak to me? Kaelen, kings don't speak to scribes without reason. It wouldn't be proper. It would make people think things, create gossip. I didn't want to cause you trouble. Lyra, smiling, so instead, you waited until the most dramatic possible moment to rescue me in front of 300 people. Kaelen, when you put it that way, it does sound counterproductive. They both laughed, real, easy, comfortable laughter. They talked for hours about everything. He told her about the crushing weight of immortality, about watching generations be born, grow, and die. He spoke of the loneliness of never making lasting connections, because everyone leaves eventually. She told him about growing up quiet, loving books more than people, and the sting of Orion's betrayal, which had confirmed every insecurity she'd ever had. The feeling of being invisible, forgettable, and worthless. Kaelen, you're not worthless. You're brilliant, kind, strong. That man was too blind to see it. That's his failure, not yours. Lyra, how do you know I'm strong? Kaelen, because you came tonight, faced your pain and didn't hide. That takes courage most people don't have. Leo, Lyra looked at him, this ancient king who had lived centuries and seen everything, yet called her strong. Lyra, thank you for tonight. Kaelen, he met her eyes. Can I see you again? After tonight, properly? Lyra, what? This isn't pretense anymore. Kaelen, not for me. I want to see you again. Court you, if you're willing. Lyra, but you're a king. I'm a scribe. Kaelen, and I like scribes. Especially ones who could debate me on the Dorian Accords. I don't understand. You could have anyone. Why me? Kaelen, because in 450 years, you're the first person who's made me feel something other than duty and obligation. You challenge me. You interest me. You make me want to know more. That's rare, precious. So, yes, I want to see you again if you'll allow it. Lyra sat there, reeling. This was insane. Impossible. Kings didn't court commoners. But he was looking at her like her answer mattered more than anything. Lyra, whispering yes. Yes, you can see me again. Kaelen, good. He stood, offering his hand. Come, I'll escort you home. He walked her through the castle and courtyard to the edge of the castle district, where she lived in a modest home with her parents. He didn't seem to care. Kaelen, tomorrow. Dinner, my private chambers. I'll send a carriage. Lyra nodded, overwhelmed, excited, and terrified all at once. He lifted her hand and pressed a courtly, respectful kiss to her knuckles. Kaelen, until tomorrow, Lyra. She watched him walk away, his massive wolves trailing, disappearing into the shadows. She wondered if she dreamed the entire night, but the warmth of his hand, the kiss on her knuckles, and the promise of tomorrow were real. She went inside. Her mother stood immediately, worried. Mother's voice, Lyra, how is it? Are you all right? We were so worried. Lyra, a real smile, I'm fine. More than fine. I think everything just changed. Part 5, The Pressure and the Mentor. The next morning, Lyra went to the Royal Archives. She settled into her small desk, surrounded by ink, quills, and ancient parchment. She tried to focus on the prophecy she was translating, but her mind kept returning to Kaelen. She feared he was just being kind, playing a role, that he would forget her or regret the spectacle. Around midday, a breathless page appeared. Page, Lady Lyra. You're Lady Lyra. Lyra, I'm just Lyra. But yes, Page, message from His Majesty. He handed her a sealed letter with the royal seal in red wax. She broke the seal and read, Dinner tonight, sunset, my private chambers. A carriage will collect you. I look forward to continuing our conversation. No formality. No, King Kaelen. Just a simple note, as if they were equals. Lyra, tell His Majesty I accept. The page grinned and ran off. Lyra sat, staring at the letter. This was real. This was happening. She was going. Absolutely going. She was still sitting there when Orion appeared. He shouldn't have been in the archives, but there he was. Orion, Lyra, we need to talk. Lyra, no, we don't. Orion, please, just hear me out. Lyra set down her quill and faced a man she planned to marry. Lyra, fine, talk. What happened last night? Orion, that king. Lyra, you need to be careful. He's using you to amuse himself. Kings don't court commoners seriously. He'll toy with you, then discard you, and you'll be hurt worse than before. Lyra, why do you care? Orion, because I still care about you. You were important to me. I don't want to see you hurt. Lyra, that's rich Orion. Coming from you. Orion, I know I hurt you. I'm sorry for that, but I'm trying to protect you now. Lyra, I don't need your protection. Orion, I think you do. You're vulnerable. Easy prey for someone like him. Someone like him, a king? Yes, kings take what they want. Use people. You think he actually cares about a scribe? He's bored. You're a novelty. Once the novelty wears off, he'll forget you exist, and you'll be left dealing with rumors and shame. Orion, stepping closer, I'm begging you. Don't do this. End it now before you're in too deep. Lyra, standing tall, you need to leave. Orion, shocked Lyra. Lyra, now leave my workspace or I'll have guards remove you. He stared at her, utterly shocked by her firmness. He left, but his words stayed, planting seeds of doubt. What if he was right? What if she was setting herself up for worse heartbreak? She tried to push the thoughts away. At sunset, the royal carriage arrived. Lyra, dressed in her best dark green gown with flowers woven into her hair, was taken to the castle, up to the royal wing. She was led to a sitting room, comfortable and lined with books. Kaelen, wearing a simple dark tunic, stood by the window. Kaelen, turning, smiling, you came? Lyra, did you think I wouldn't? Kaelen, I hoped you would, but I wasn't certain. After the spectacle, you might have had second thoughts. The guards closed the door, leaving them alone, save for a stern older woman, Mrs. Kenna, who acted as chaperone. Lyra, I had many thoughts, Kaelen, but none of them were about not coming. They ate. Kaelen served the food himself. They talked, and the conversation flowed easily, as if they'd known each other for years. After the meal, Kaelen grew serious. Kaelen, I need to tell you something. Your former betrothed came to see me today. Lyra, stomach dropping he did. What did he want? Kaelen, to warn me away from you. Said you were vulnerable. That pursuing you would be cruel. That I should leave you alone. Lyra, and what did you say? Kaelen, I told him where he could shove his concerns. He laughed, not in those exact words. I was more diplomatic, but the sentiment was clear. He paused, but his words made me think about whether I'm being selfish. Lyra, what do you mean? Kaelen, I'm 450 years old. Immortal. You are human, mortal. You will age. I won't. Eventually, you will die, and I will watch it happen. Am I cruel to start something knowing it ends in loss? Or would it be more cruel to walk away from something real because I'm afraid of future pain? Silence fell heavy and profound. Lyra, I don't know. I've never thought about loving someone who won't age. Do you love me? Kaelen, we've known each other one day, but yes, I think so. The beginning of it. And you? Lyra, She hesitated. Yes, maybe the beginning. Kaelen, then we'll figure out the rest together. If you're willing to try. Lyra, I'm willing. Part 6. Lessons in Lycans. Over the next weeks, Kaelen courted Lyra publicly, but properly. Their walks and gardens were always chaperoned by the stern, unwavering Mrs. Kenna. Mrs. Kenna had served the royal family for 40 years and had seen countless scandals. Nothing shocked her anymore. Mrs. Kenna took to Lyra immediately. Mrs. Kenna voiced, finally, someone with sense. Tired of vapid noble girls who care only for jewels and gossip. You have a brain. Use it. Mrs. Kenna became more than a chaperone. She became Lyra's teacher and advisor. She taught Lyra court etiquette, which fork to use, how to address different ranks, when to curtsy, and when to stand firm. Mrs. Kenna voiced, "You're going to be queen," she said bluntly. Act like it. Don't apologize for existing. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. You earned your place here. The lessons were invaluable, giving Lyra the confidence she lacked. The wolves also became an integral part of her life. Grim, the largest, was serious and protective, positioning himself as a living wall between Lyra and anyone he deemed threatening. Ash was gentle despite his size, often resting his massive head in Lyra's lap, while she worked in the archives, seeking attention. She would scratch his ears while reading, and he would sigh contentedly. Fawn was playful and young, sometimes bringing her stolen things like sticks, gloves, or once, a council member's hat, which Lyra had to return with profuse apologies. Storm was restless and constantly pacing, needing purpose. Lyra started sending him with messages between her and Kaelen. Shadow was the smartest, missing nothing. He would alert the others to any sign of danger. The 5 wolves became Lyra's constant companions, protectors, and friends. Court members quickly learned that to get to Lyra, they had to go through 5 massive Lycan wolves, and most chose kindness. Kaelen visited her in the archives, watching her work, asking questions and learning. She taught him about texts he'd never read, languages he'd never learned. One afternoon, she was translating a difficult passage. Old Lycan mixed with Dorian. Kaelen watched over her shoulder. "Kaelen, what does it say?" "Lyra. This word here," she pointed. "It has 3 meanings depending on the context. To bind, to connect, or to love. The sentence structure suggests it's talking about unions, marriages, but the exact meaning is unclear. Kaelen, read it aloud. Sometimes hearing it helps." She spoke the ancient words. They sounded rough and beautiful. When she finished, Kaelen was quiet. "Lyra, what?" "Kaelen, that was the old marriage vow. What you just read, it's what Lycan said when bonding with mates centuries ago, before we adopted human customs. Lyra, what does the full passage mean?" "Kaelen, when 2 souls recognize each other across time and distance, when knowledge becomes wisdom and wisdom becomes love, they bind themselves not with chains, but with choice. Forever connected, forever free, forever one." Lyra stared at the text, then at Kaelen. "Lyra, that's beautiful." "Kaelen, yes it is." They looked at each other, understanding that this was what they were building. Not chains, but choice, connection, and love. The court noticed. Gossip exploded. "The king is courting a commoner, a scribe with no family, no dowry, no connections. It's scandalous. It's unprecedented. It's wrong," they cried. Lady Seraphina was particularly vocal. She was a beautiful, wealthy noble who had expected to be queen. Now, this nobody was taking what she believed was rightfully hers. She began a subtle campaign, questioning Lyra's suitability, her breeding, and her worthiness. Kaelen's council met with him, pressuring him heavily. Council voice, Your Majesty, you need a political alliance, a marriage that strengthens the kingdom. Kaelen, I need a partner. I found one. Council voice, she can't offer anything. No lands, no armies, no connections. Kaelen, she offers intelligence, kindness, understanding. That's worth more than land. Council voice, the people won't accept a commoner queen. Kaelen, then the people will learn to adapt. He was immovable, absolute, but the pressure increased. Lyra felt the stares, the whispers, the judgment. Part 7, the prophecy fulfilled. One day, working deep in the archives, Lyra found something. An old manuscript, written in Old Lycan. She had come across it by chance while cataloging. She started reading and froze. It was a prophecy written centuries ago. When darkness threatens and hope seems lost, the king without heir shall find his match, not in houses of gold or lineage proud, but in the house of knowledge. She who speaks the tongues of old, who holds history in her hands, shall stand beside the eternal. Together they shall forge a future written in the stars. Lyra read it 3 times, trembling. This prophecy described them perfectly. King without heir? Kaelen had no children. House of knowledge? The archives. She who speaks the tongues of old? Her. It had been written centuries before she was born, predicting this union. She ran, burst into Kaelen's council meeting without announcement. The council members looked scandalized. Kaelen, standing immediately, concerned Lyra, what's wrong? Elwire, I found something. It's important. Kaelen, the council can wait. Come. In his study, she showed him the manuscript and translated the passage, showing him how perfectly it fit. Kaelen, this was written 300 years ago? Elwire, yes, by Sir Althea. She was gifted. Her prophecies always came true, and it describes us. Kaelen, golden eyes intense, yes, it does. The prophecy changed everything. Kaelen presented it to the council. Elder Magnus, an ancient scholar, verified the authenticity. Elder Magnus' voice, this is genuine old Lycan script. Sir Althea's mark, and the prophecy is clear. The king will find his match in a place of knowledge. This union was foretold. Lady Seraphina was furious, claiming Lyra forged it. Lyra was called before the council to defend her discovery. She stood before them nervous and determined, presenting evidence, ink analysis, parchment dating, cross-referencing. Elder Magnus supported her. Elder Magnus' voice, the text is genuine. I've studied Althea's work for a century. This is hers, and the prophecy is clear. Seraphina tried to argue, but the facts were undeniable. The prophecy was real, and it described Kaelen and Lyra. Kaelen had his ammunition. Kaelen, the gods themselves ordained this union. Who are we to argue with fate? Seraphina left the castle, too humiliated to stay. Lyra gained a measure of respect. She wasn't just a commoner. She was fulfilling destiny. But Orion tried one last time. 3 months after the feast, he appeared at the archives again. Orion, Lyra, please. One more conversation. Elwire, what do you want, Orion? Orion, to save you. From what? From yourself. The king is obsessed with you. The court is divided. You're causing chaos. If you truly care about him, you'll walk away. Let him find someone suitable. Someone who won't tear the kingdom apart. There's talk of rebellion. All because he chose you over tradition. Orion, if you leave, it all settles. He finds a proper queen. The kingdom stabilizes. Elwire, you're asking me to sacrifice my happiness for politics. Orion, I'm asking you to do what's right." Lyra stared at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. "Elwire, you don't actually care about me or the kingdom. You care about being right. You care about proving that choosing Seraphina over me was the correct decision. But if I'm happy with the king, if I end up queen, then it proves you made a mistake, that I was worth more than you realized. And you can't stand that. Orion, that's not. Elwire, get out. I mean it this time. Get out and don't come back. If you approach me again, I'll have you banned from the castle." He left, finally, permanently, and Lyra realized she was done letting other people define her worth. She was going to be queen, and she was going to be a damn good one. Part 8. The Climax and the Vow. A week later, a political crisis emerged, a border dispute with the neighboring kingdom of Almer. Almer claimed rights to a vital trade route and threatened war if Valoran didn't concede. Kaelen was preparing for a war no one wanted, but honor demanded it. Then Lyra remembered something. A treaty she'd translated months ago. She dug through the archives and found it. An ancient pact between Valoran and Almer from 400 years ago. The treaty clearly stated boundaries and trade rights, and Almer's current claim was invalid. They had signed away those rights centuries ago. Lyra rushed it to Kaelen and the council. She presented it, translating the relevant sections, proving Almer had no legal standing. The council was stunned. Elder Magnus verified. Elder Magnus' voice. This is legitimate. This treaty supersedes their claim. Kaelen sent a treaty to Almer, giving them a choice: honor the agreement or face war knowing they were in the wrong. Almer backed down. They apologized. War was averted. The kingdom was saved, and Lyra had done it. A common scribe, using knowledge instead of swords. The council looked at her with newfound respect and admiration. She had proven her worth. She had proven she could be a queen who helped her people. The opposition crumbled. Support grew, and 4 months after the wedding feast, Kaelen proposed. He took her to the gardens, to the same stone bench where they talked that first night. The moon was full, the stars were bright, and his wolves were around them, protective. Kaelen knelt, a king on his knee before a scribe. "Kaelen, Lyra, 4 months ago, I saw a woman suffering alone at a feast. I offered her an escape, an evening of dignity. I thought it would be one night, a kindness, nothing more. But then I talked to you, learned who you are, what you value, how you think, and I realized I didn't want one night. I wanted every night. Kaelen, you made me feel things I've forgotten. Hope, joy, purpose beyond duty. You challenge me, support me, stand beside me as an equal. I don't want a queen for politics. I want a partner, someone I love. And I love you. Kaelen, so I'm asking, will you marry me? Will you be my queen? Not because of prophecy, not because of duty, but because I choose you. And I hope you choose me." She was crying happy tears. She knelt with him, took his hands. "Elwire, yes, I choose you. Absolutely. Always." He slid a ring onto her finger. Simple silver with a single sapphire. Runes were engraved inside in old Lycan. Lyra read them. Knowledge is strength. Love is power. Perfect. The wolves howled, celebrating. The kingdom learned the next day. Some grumbled, but most accepted. The prophecy was known. The averted war was known. Lyra had proven herself, and the king was genuinely happy for the first time in decades. Part 9. The Scholar Queen. Before the wedding, Lyra visited her parents. They lived in their modest stone house with a workshop. Her father was carving wood. Her mother was weaving. Lyra, Papa, Mama, I need to tell you something. She told them everything. The courtship, the prophecy, the proposal, the wedding in 3 months. Her mother cried happy tears. Mother's voice, my daughter, my quiet, brilliant daughter, a queen. Her father, his hands rough from carpentry, held hers. Father's voice, are you happy? That's all that matters. Lyra, yes, terrified but happy. Father's voice, he does right by you. Lyra, this king, he sees me, Papa, really sees me, values what I think, what I know. He doesn't want to change me. He wants me exactly as I am. Mother's voice, you were always meant for something more. Always reading, learning, growing beyond this house. We knew we'd lose you someday. Just didn't expect to lose you to a king. Lyra, you're not losing me. I'll visit all the time. Promise. Her father built her something for the wedding. A small wooden box carved with wolves, stars, and open books. Father's voice for your treasures, so you remember where you came from. Lyra, I'll never forget. They married 3 months later. A small ceremony by royal standards, held in the castle gardens under the stars. Lyra wore a white silk dress her mother made, embroidered with silver thread, and old Lycan runes spelling out words of wisdom. Kaelen wore ceremonial armor, but his eyes were only for her. Walking toward him, his 5 massive wolves stood on guard, solemn and protective. Lyra's parents were there, crying with joy. Their quiet, bookish daughter was becoming queen. The ceremony was traditional. Vows were exchanged. The priestess bound their hands with silk cord, speaking ancient words, blessing their union. When Kaelen kissed her as his wife, his queen, the wolves howled, the guests cheered, and Lyra felt complete. The feast was joyous. Lyra didn't miss Orion or Seraphina. She was too busy dancing with her husband, starting a new chapter where she mattered, where she was seen, where she was loved. As queen, Lyra continued her work. Kaelen insisted, Kaelen, your knowledge is valuable. Don't abandon it for a crown. She established the first public library in the kingdom, a place where anyone could access books and learn. She sponsored scholars and used her position to spread knowledge. The people love her for it, calling her the Scholar Queen, the Wise Queen. She mediated disputes, advised the council, and became as much a ruler as Kaelen, his partner in every sense. Years passed. Kaelen's Lycan blood slowed her aging. She would have centuries instead of decades. Time to build a legacy. Time to love and be loved. When people asked how they met, Lyra would smile and say, Lyra, I was sitting alone at a wedding. He said, act like you're with me. Turned out I wanted to be for real. And Kaelen would add, Kaelen, I thought I was rescuing her from humiliation. She ended up rescuing me from loneliness. Their story became legend. The king and the scribe. The prophecy fulfilled. The match made not in politics, but in understanding, respect, and a love that chose to see value where others saw nothing. Lyra never forgot that night, sitting alone, humiliated, heartbroken, because it led her here, to a man who saw her, to a life of purpose, to belonging. Sometimes the worst moments in life are doorways, leading somewhere better, somewhere you are always meant to be. You just have to be brave enough to walk through when someone offers their hand. Lyra had been brave. She had taken Kaelen's hand, and together they built something extraordinary.
Drop a crown in the comments if you think Lyra deserved this beautiful ending. And drop a broken heart if you felt that moment of absolute humiliation at the start. Let me know what you thought of this story, and don't forget to subscribe to Moonlit Passions for more heart-pounding werewolf romance every week. Remember, sometimes being left behind is the universe making room for something better. Sometimes the worst night of your life is the first night of your real story.